Are you curious about the unknown, the unexplainable? Do you find yourself intrigued by the mysterious and paranormal side of our world? Join us on an adventure into the world of inexplicable discoveries and investigations that may someday give us the final answer as to what may be behind the veil of reality. The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest is known as the Woodland Ghost Tracker and co-founder of Ghost Contact Paranormal. It's on a mission just like us. Together, we are diving into the intriguing world of the paranormal and the supernatural, seeking answers to the mysteries that surround us. All this plus more. Please welcome to Let's Find Out a new friend to our show, Ben Strongwolf Rodriguez. Ben, my friend, thank you for being on the show. It's been about a week since I've talked to you, right?
Yeah, and thanks for having me.
Of course. I think the last time I was co-hosting on Adam's show, and we had a pretty good time. We talked about a lot of things, and Adam always has these great questions, and I was just in there for the ride, my friend. But before we start, we have a special guest as well. So who are we here with?
Hi, I'm Beth Rodriguez. I'm the other co-founder of Ghost Contact Paranormal, Ben's wife. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, I have a lot of questions because at one point when Adam and I were talking to you, Ben, that was last Thursday. You take a lot of risks going out there and doing a lot of things, and I want to take your wife's accounts of these things and what she thinks about it, because she may have been in some of them you were not. So I'm gonna get right down to it. I want to follow up on the story we're talking about. If you can take me back to that one point in our conversation, you went on an exploration. You went into the woods. Now, originally, you were going to go with a team, but then it wound up just being you. So I know we're jumping way ahead, but how did this plan come about, and what exactly were you looking for?
Well, the place we go to often, it's called Seven Gables. It's a wooded area, and it's a location that has activity in it. The activity is minimal, but it's a nice place to go because you can go there spontaneous. You don't need to book the place in advance. It's just open to the public. So whenever you're feeling okay, I feel like ghost hunting today, that's the place to go to. And I had gone there originally to go there with a few of my team members, and of course every one of them didn't show up, which left me there by myself with all the equipment charged, ready to go. And I said, what the heck, I'm just going to go out there and investigate by myself. I've been in this woods many times, and I wasn't initially scared until some of those things started happening.
Oh, well, one of the things I was going to bring up was, at that location, what were you originally looking for?
Originally, I went there just to do a paranormal investigation and to try to have some of the stuff that has happened to us in the past reoccur. So, your typical ghost interactions, EVPs, and that sort of thing. I was not going there with the intention on looking for anything cryptid or alien. Like, we're specifically into ghost hunting is basically what we do.
Sure, but you wouldn't shy away from looking for a cryptid, would you?
No, definitely. I mean, just like getting that validation or that proof with the paranormal when it comes to ghosts, I have to have some sort of proof in order for me to go from being a skeptic to a believer. And I haven't really had anything as far, well, if you could say Bigfoot or Dogman, any experiences of that. We did capture what appears to be a weird creature in a tree when we were out there, that I can't even explain, that I don't even know if I got a chance to tell you last time I was on the podcast with you guys, but we caught a creature. It looked like a 6-foot salamander in a tree.
Wow, it kind of gives me kind of like the Dover Demon. Kind of sounds like that, because the Dover Demon, I think that was the story from the. Don't mind me, I'm old and I forget things. I think it was in the 70s, and there were 3 teenagers within in 2 nights, separate events, saw the same creature. Similar description, but this one had, of course, not similar description, but not the same. But also, maybe this one was about 3 to 4 feet tall, but it hasn't been seen since. Now, with this evidence that you captured, or things have you seen? Now, Beth, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
When Ben went out there in the woods, he tells you, "Man, I'm alone here." Were you like, "I'm going to kill you"? What are you doing in the woods to yourself?
I mean, I usually don't mind him going out there by himself, or really going out anywhere by himself. Just, be careful. And there really hasn't, especially out in that area, been, anything that really has happened that would make me worry. Honestly, in my personal opinion, the only thing that I would be worried about is animals out there. And even then, there's not really anything out there that I would be super worried about. But
There are reports on a rare occasion of a cougar sighting in Michigan, but generally they're smaller in size up here, and they're more scared of us than we are of them.
I don't know. Maybe speaking for yourself, I might be a little uncomfortable if I saw a bobcat or a mountain lion of some sort, but that's okay. So we'll go back in time. So how does this team begin? Because it's not the first husband and wife team that I've been to have a conversation with that have a paranormal investigating group, but it's one of those things to where, now did you both find out later that you both had a love of the paranormal, or were you already both on the same path when this started?
Well, for me, I honestly never really thought I would get into something like this. I've always been like really, really scared of scary movies, like horror movies and everything. But I think most of that is just the gore that I don't like. But I hadn't really considered starting a team for a while. I'd had some personal experiences, so I did have some experiences with things that I thought might be paranormal, and I actually kind of started to get into the paranormal when I found out about Robert the Doll in Florida. And so I actually had the opportunity while I was living in Florida to go visit Robert. So I thought that was really, really cool about that. But we started watching some of the paranormal shows and everything, kind of got into those, and we're like, this is kind of interesting, and kind of sort of went from there, I guess.
Wow. No, because it's interesting. Because what, Robert the Doll's in the Keys, right? Right there in the Keys?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, did you follow the rules?
I did, actually. I did. I asked his permission to take the pictures before I did, and all of my pictures turned out great, actually. So, but even just going to the museum where he is right now is just an experience in itself. It's such a cool museum, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of people go to see him, but just going into the museum itself is worth going anyway, even if you know nothing about Robert.
And so with me, like I told you, I had a background in film production, which is kind of why, after we started watching all these shows, and we could do something like that. And so, I already had a couple cameras. I just wanted to invest in a few more and put the word out there that we're looking to put a team together. And it just took off from there. As far as my personal experience, I didn't have my personal experience until after I met Beth. We had went up north to, because her grandparents had a house on a lake up north in Michigan, and there's a woods that we had walked, that somebody kind of had constructed where people can put like antiques and stuff in this woods, that just things that they didn't wanted to get rid of or whatever, that they called the Enchanted Forest. And there was this one squirrel that somebody had stuck out there.
A wooden squirrel.
A wooden squirrel that somebody carved. And we kept trying to take pictures of it, and they wouldn't come out, or they would erase themselves off our phone. So speaking of like Robert Duvall sort of situation, none of the pictures would come out, or delete the pictures, or make your phone shut off, or all these weird things. So I started to mock this squirrel, and the next thing I knew, a walnut went flying from a tree and hit me in the back. Now, mind you, there's no walnut trees anywhere around where we were. So where this walnut came from, I have no idea.
How hard did it hit you?
Not very hard. It was in the fall. I think I might have had a jacket on, maybe.
So enough to startle you, but
enough to be like, what the heck? Where did this come from?
Wow. So, because I'm thinking of if walnut's being hurled towards you now, was it? I have my mind the way it works because I want to know where it came from. So, did it hit you straight in the back? Did it come from above? Was it like an arching? You think, and then?
Yeah. There might have been a little arching. All I know is I felt the hit on the back, and then it dropped by my feet, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, that is weird. Not only do you got to worry about wildcats, they got to worry about these maniac squirrels throwing walnuts at you. But that's part of the fun, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you too, that damn squirrel, we had issues with that more than once. Like that was probably the second or third time we'd been down there. And the first time we were down in that area, that squirrel wouldn't let us take pictures either. So it keeps getting worse every time.
It's called the Enchanted Forest in Central Lake, Michigan.
Wow. So you mean tell me that all the times you've attempted to take a picture of this squirrel, it just does not come out, and there's always some sort of issue?
Yes, yeah. We finally were able to actually get one to come out, but yeah, it was like we could take pictures of just about anything else down that trail and everything else would come out. But we get to that squirrel and try to take a picture and it would not come out.
I think she had to ask for permission.
I think I did finally ask the squirrel, hey, can I finally get a picture of you? Will you cooperate with me? But yeah, it was kind of crazy.
And that's the first time I ever heard of such a thing. I think that one might think that we could go back again. We got to do this investigation. We got to figure out what's going on there. There's got to be some sort of history with this squirrel.
I know, and we don't, everybody. So I think the Enchanted Forest started actually on the land next to somebody's property, and they had started it as like a little like haunted, like Halloween haunted little walk through the woods for their family, and then turned it into the Enchanted Forest that basically anyone can come down there and people will leave things down there and just add to the forest little by little. So where that squirrel even came from, we don't know.
I don't know. Now I'm thinking, because I normally add them on this show, is what's your bucket list? I'm going to have to add that to my bucket list to go out and investigate, because now I'm hooked. There's something to this squirrel. And I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't bring you here to do a whole hour about the squirrel, but that's the most fascinating thing I've heard in a while. So now, let's move over to your YouTube channel, because there's a lot of fantastic videos on there, and I've been recently watching some of them, and there's a couple of things that kind of got my attention. If you don't mind, if we talk about them, do you?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I watched a video where you were in a location called Mason Historical Museum.
Yes.
And
correct, yep.
There's a lot in there, and I know we could probably take an hour talking about that. So where is this located, and what goes on in there?
I'll let you take this one if you want.
Yeah. The museum is located in Mason, Michigan, about a block outside of downtown. The building has been a couple different things over the years. Originally, the Rayner family was a very prominent figure in the town, and it was what it was called as their city house. They had one out in the outskirts of town that was their country house, but originally the building was their city house, and then it turned into a church of science, I believe is what it was. And actually, what was really cool about that location was I grew up on that block. So I lived on that block for almost 12 years, for the first 12 years of my life. So I knew the area very well, and now they've just turned it into a historical museum with different, things about Mason, and it was very interesting going there too. And they showed us a video of the history of the town and everything, and I actually learned a lot of things that I didn't really know, even though I grew up there. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, and then obviously the Rainer came through when we were doing the our unusual version of an Estes method.
I mean, I guess there's no set way to do the Estes method, so we were just doing our own version of it. But I mean, for all the words that could have came through at that particular moment, it was Rainer who owned the building, which that surprised us a lot. Those of us who were in that room when the voice came through, I mean, we heard it as it was happening, and we were shocked.
Yeah, and then when we were doing our walkthrough early on, you also and we actually, this wasn't an EVP because we heard this with our own ears. What sounded like an older person that had come in and was, we were all in the basement, obviously, and so it was that sound of hello, anybody home, sort of thing. And we went up there, walked around, and sure enough, there was nobody in the building.
Now, what is your preferred method when you go to these locations? Because you say you use kind of your own version of a certain method. So what is your go-to? I mean, really, I guess it would be wise to use different methods, but which one works the best for you both?
Well, what you mean, like the Estes method, or just the overall investigation?
Well, the first one, and then the overall. Which was your favorite of all of those?
Well, so basically, when we go into an investigation, we kind of we'll go into an investigation blind, meaning we don't know the history, and then we'll read up on the history after the fact, because we don't want to go into an investigation with pre-notions that, okay, this is what we're going to expect to see.
Yeah.
Because the more you expect something, a lot of times we're trying to force the spirit to do that. And so we just go a lot of times into an investigation with a clear conscience, clear mind, and then just, we'll
kind of see what happens. Yeah. The one in Mason, we did know some of the history beforehand, but when we went to a location in Toledo, Ohio, the Collingwood Art Center, we went into that investigation completely blind. We told the tour guide, we don't want to know. We don't want to know what happened to different teams that came through here. And, you can tell us, history of the building and whatnot, some of the history, but don't tell us what happened to other people.
Activity-wise.
Paranormal activity-wise, whatever. But so we were... At that location, we were very pleasantly surprised. We had a lot of experiences that were very cool, and the other things that we caught after the fact going through our footage. So, honestly, I do think that's a good way of doing things, just because, as Ben said, you don't want to have those, I guess, preconceived notions of this is what's going to happen, because then you end up, when it doesn't happen, you're like, well, that was kind of a bust, but... so that's kind of something we've started doing pretty recently, is just kind of going into an investigation blind.
No, and I think that's the best way to do it. And I'm not an experienced paranormal investigator or anything of that sorts, but there's a couple of camps that fall. People will do the research before they go, or those that just go in cold. Preferably just go in cold, because you're going to get so much more out of it
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not going to be disappointed, and you're not going to go in there with a preconceived notion of who was there, or what you think they would say.
Right.
Right.
And it's kind of like we had some of the experiences kind of like took us to taking those steps as we heard a dog barking. We were doing an investigation on a battleship called the USS Edson in Saginaw Bay, Michigan. And it was like a destroyer class battleship. And
During the Vietnam War.
yes. And we heard a dog barking on it. And we were like, well, when I was going through the footage, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. We didn't hear it at the time, but we definitely heard it while reviewing the footage. And I asked the tour guide about that. She then told us that the captain had a dog on the ship. So sometimes,
Yeah.
even though we do go into an investigation with blind, we will, after the fact, do research.
And that actually just kind of came up in conversation that this was a couple months later that we even brought that up in conversation to the tour guide and somebody else who had worked on the ship too, because they have the ship as a museum now too. And it just kind of, they were like, oh, did you know that there was actually a dog on the ship that the sailors kind of smuggled onto the ship? We're like, no, we had no idea. So we're like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense now as to why we heard the dog barking. So it is kind of interesting when stuff like that kind of happens.
Well, that sounds kind of cool because now
Cool.
brings to the fact that now you can hear people's dogs in the afterlife. That thing is kind of cool. I'm a dog guy. I have 4 dogs, and that kind of gives me hope that once I pass, maybe they'll be there with me as well. I don't know, but that makes me feel kind of cool,
Yeah.
We have a dog. We're a ghost cat in our house. We have no idea. Like, it kind of started appearing before one of our cats passed away, but we will see this cat walking through the house, and even if there's times that our cat that we have now is in our basement with the door closed, we'll hear a cat jumping off the counter in the kitchen, and so we've just kind of embraced it. It's just kind of here. We'll see it every now and again. So it is kind of cool that animals, you still have the spirit of them too, that they can come in spirit form as well to visit you. So
No, that's fantastic. I mean, I would love that. And then because we're talking now, not only animals in the afterlife or hearing the sounds of animals when you play back the video or the audio, but then let's move on to something a little bit different. Because then there's a video here. It's a kind of short video where you cover haunted objects, and there's some that would never bring these things into their homes or they have it in storage somewhere. Where do you fall into this?
Well, I did that video because one of our good friends started a haunted museum in the Lansing area, which is probably a 5-minute drive, 5 to 10 minute drive from our house.
Not too far.
And he has this shop, and he lets us go in there. Every year he hosts an event where we can set up our table and talk about paranormal stuff. So we got really close with him. And I had just happened to do an investigation, which kind of correlates with one of my other videos, called the Haunted Portal Mirror. And I had donated this mirror to the museum, and it's one of the featured items in this museum. And so I also wanted to do, a video showcasing all his other haunted items within his shop and like what happens with those particular items.
And when you look at some of these items, I'm sure each one of them has their own special history or origin. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, my friends, were you able to pick up anything from them? And if so, what did they tell you? What did you learn from it?
Well, the thing that I donated, which was the haunted portal mirror, is definitely the featured item. People have claimed to be getting scratched when they look in the mirror. One lady felt like her face was on fire when she looked into the mirror. their face gets distorted, or they see something, or get touched when they approach the mirror. And so, and that mirror was even showcased on our local news. And the news anchor had to run out because of the mirror. There's also a doll in there that originally doesn't come from a haunted history, but is very active because it likes to interact with like the little cat balls. There's like a painting that's in there that always pegs the needle on the K2 meter.
Yeah. There are also there's an African statue in there too that I didn't used to feel a lot of energy and things from different objects, but as soon as the owner of the shop handed me that, my entire arms just went completely tingly. It was like
mine too.
Such a huge pins and needles feeling as soon as I touched that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very weird feeling that I had not experienced with a haunted object before. But also with the mirror in the museum, a lot of people get the feeling of being nauseous in there too when they're around that mirror. Yeah. We were just honestly there a couple weekends ago when they were having an event, and a couple friends of ours were in the museum with us, and one of them said she really felt like she was going to throw up. As soon as he, pulled the curtain from the mirror, she's just like, oh my gosh, I just feel like this huge wave of nausea. So it's just a lot of people end up being very affected by that mirror.
How crazy is that? Now, and I know, Ben, you talked about this mirror probably last week, and to refresh my memory, and also probably some of the listeners that may not have caught that episode, what is the history of this mirror? Now, is it people getting nauseous from looking at the mirror because is it warped like a funhouse mirror? Is it like a regular mirror? What is it about this mirror that has such a reaction?
This mirror, I inadvertently trapped a very dark spirit within it. So I went to this guy's house. He called me because he was being attacked in his bed by a demonic entity or a very negative spirit. And it was attacking him in a sexual way. And it was draining his energy really bad. And so I went in there, and this guy had mirrors literally all over his bedroom in every corner. And when you looked into these mirrors and they reflected off the other mirrors in the other corners, it just looked like you were staring into like a funhouse effect sort of thing. And there are a couple of the mirrors, when you looked into them, it just looked like you were staring into a black hole. And, you couldn't really see anything, but they look like, and these mirrors, mind you, went from the floor to the ceiling all the way up, and they had joined each other. And so just creating this massive portal or vortex in this guy's room. And I'm like, you got to get these mirrors out of here, And I was taking some of the mirrors out. I got to the last one, and I'm just pulling it out, and it's just coming up. It shattered into a million pieces, like dust almost, except this one shard that was left at the very, very bottom. And I grabbed that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take that home and keep it. Something told me to just keep that one, not to throw it away, but to keep it. Whatever it was told me to do that, and I put it in our garage, and I'm like, I'm going to do something with that. I think I'm going to give it to John, who started, because our guide, or our friend John, was just starting this museum up. And I figured, you know what, this might be a good talking piece that, he can talk about. So I framed it, and I put a little history story behind it and where I got it from. And I gave it to him, and immediately his spouse felt very uneasy with it. And so they decided to hang it up in the museum and let people browse it. And right away, people started being affected by it almost instantly.
Oh, but speaking of keeping haunted objects in a house, I did not actually know that he brought that into our house until after the fact. So after that, I was like, oh, thanks.
I did end up bringing the mirror into our house to frame it. It was in the house for a very short time. But I have a feeling the spirit is stuck in the mirror and was not going to go anywhere. So thankfully...
we have not been affected by having had that in our house, thank goodness.
So wherever that mirror goes, the spirit's with it because it's trapped in there. And what I was doing is I was doing a cleansing and I was pushing everything out of the house. And then my next step was to remove the mirrors and then do another cleansing. And then during that whole process, when that mirror shattered, I think the spirit had already crossed through that mirror, through that portal, right around the time it broke. So I think he's trapped in that mirror.
Were you ever able to make contact with the spirit or catch a glimpse of it or anything like that? What do you think it is, that thing?
Well, what do you call those spirits that attack people in a sexual way?
Well, there's two. There's succubus and incubus, right?
Yeah, whichever one that prefers to go after male. But whatever it was attacking the man in a sexual manner. And during our investigation, we had our medium out there, and the spirit actually threw his bag from off the couch onto the floor. I didn't see it. I don't know what it was. No glimpse, no visual. There's audio because on my first initial walkthrough, I had set a DVR recorder on his bed while I was actually conducting an interview with him in the other room. And we got what sounded like literally like a demonic screeching sound. You would have to go into our shorts in our video, or our video shorts, and you can hear the demonic growling from that investigation.
Okay, so now I just pulled into the shorts. I think I see 3 of them. Was it Ghost Caught on Camera? Is that the one? Or
Nope, that's
demonic audio from the... Oh, there it goes. Demonic audio taken from the haunted mirror. All right, perfect. So I'm definitely going to check that out tonight right before I go to bed for some reason. I don't know if that's the best time to do it, but I'm going to do it.
With that audio, when you hear it, it is insane. I'll just say that. And how my DVR recorder caught that, I don't know, but it was on his bed. So that's the only real, like, besides the guy, our medium's bag falling off the couch, as far as evidence-wise goes, that audio is the only other thing we got.
No, I think that's quite enough, to tell you the truth, especially especially with what that spirit does to its unsuspecting victims. And with that being said, with the videos you have on your YouTube channel, what are you working on next? What videos should we be expecting?
Well, we have 2 investigations coming up in the near future, possibly 3. We had a lady reach out to us. Also from Mason, we should hear back from hopefully in the next couple of weeks. She says her mother's house is haunted and wants us to come check it out. And so we're going to put a date together to possibly go do that. And then we have 2 out-of-state investigations this summer that we're going to be doing. May 3rd, we're going to be going to
the Rhodes Hotel in Indiana.
Yeah, Rhodes Hotel. And then I believe June 21st, I think it is, we'll be going to the Rock Island Brewery or something like that. It was like Rock Island Hotel and Brewery or something. That's in Illinois, almost over by the Iowa border. Yeah. And
Wow,
so,
man. And so with these locations, how do you choose them? Is it one of those things that you go on the internet and try to find something where this is where it's been reported some activity, or is it your followers that are suggesting these locations? How do you choose them?
a lot of times I will do research on places that are within our budget because we don't have the greatest budget to go out and investigate, like some of these
Really huge places.
prime locations, I would love to go to Trans-Allegheny or one of those places. There's a place here in Michigan, only an hour away, but they charge like hundreds and hundreds of dollars to investigate. And, maybe one of these days it'll be in our budget if we got sponsored or something. But right now,
Yeah.
I'm looking for the budget conscious places, and, it's like Collingwood. I think we paid like $600 and I only had to pay $300 to book the place, and then $300 the day of the investigation.
And truthfully, that was definitely worth the money. So the Collingwood Arts Center they rent out rooms there for people to have like art studios, and they have a theater in there too, and they do a lot of things for the community and everything. But the building itself, including the Gerber Mansion that's attached to it, is 86,000 square feet.
Huge.
So it's five floors, not including the basement. It's definitely on my list of places to go back to, because in like the amount of time that we had there, we covered quite a bit of the building, but I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface. Like, there is so much building there that I would love to go back there, but we also caught some really awesome evidence there as well.
Yeah. But going back to what I was saying, as far as like, it's just a lot of like going onto Facebook, researching places that are within certain area. We try to stay within 6 to 8 hours maximum outside of Michigan. Also for traveling reasons, and so I will research places like in Indiana, and I'll just go on Google and I'll search haunted locations in Indiana, or haunted locations in Ohio, or haunted locations in Illinois, places that are near Michigan. With the Greystone Manor, the one that we did in New York, she actually reached out to me because I put a post online saying, in the next couple of weeks, we're looking for a location that's within this price range. Would any of my friends know of a place that we could go investigate? And actually, somehow or another, I was already friends with the owner of the Greystone Manor. Just because I get a lot of friend requests of people in the paranormal on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And she reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, I'll let you rent this place for." I think at the time it was like $500. So I only had to put 200 down, and then ask everyone on the team to put in about $60-$70, and then we put the team together and head out there. So it was one of those things that actually, for the distance that we went and the amount of time that we had to prepare for it, it was not a lot.
Yeah. That one's definitely the farthest we've been.
Oh, that's 8-hour drive. How long was that drive?
About 8 hours.
Yeah, about 8 hours.
Yeah, about 8.
And it's one of those things, because I see, and I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm not trying to be personal to anybody here, but there are a lot of teams that explore the same locations over and over again. Some of these bigger locations, they charge an exorbitant amount of money, especially with teams that, we're all on a shoestring budget, really, to tell you the truth. But there are so many places out there that have paranormal activity that may not even be places people even think about. So they're smaller, lesser known places. And I think that would be more bang for your buck for some who would go to these locations.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's a lot of the times the best places to go.
Yeah, just like the Rhodes Hotel. It's a smaller building, but they said the activity is just insane there. So, and that's okay. We have the ability to investigate a larger building because we have like 20 cameras. I think I shared some of those with you yesterday, and that was just a small portion. The last time I came on the video with you guys, that was just a small portion of the cameras that we have. So even the Collingwood Arts Center, I still had cameras I could use.
Yeah, definitely.
So with the cameras, I know from last week you actually a little show and tell you did on that one, which is beneficial for those that have the video. Unfortunately, I'm audio, but I know you talked about a really badass looking pair of binoculars you had there.
Oh, they're amazing. They were about $400 or $500 on Amazon that I got them from, and yeah, they're not thermo. They're infrared binoculars that have recording mode on it. So it's basically like a camera and binocular in one, and they could literally see like a quarter mile away in pitch black darkness. So, and I like that just because the fact that I do a lot of investigations in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that your preferred locations to go in the woods, or it doesn't matter where you go?
For me, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I like going in the woods because, well, for one, it's a lot more inexpensive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And two, it's spontaneous. There's a lot of trails around Michigan that you can go, and for me, I don't even have to research a place that's haunted. I can literally walk just about anywhere in Michigan in the woods and run into paranormal activity in some way or another. I mean, there's been times I've gone into the woods and not got anything, and then it's just nice to walk in the woods anyways. But that's why I came up with the Woodland Ghost Tracker thing, just because I want to take a lot of my videos that I've done where I've walked around in the woods, did solo stuff, and make a nice little like documentary out of it.
Yeah, because your videos are great, man. I like watching them, and I'm looking at some of these ones that are pretty heavy duty. But let me ask you this though: out of all these locations you've been to, and it's been quite a few, and I'm sure there's a lot of them that you have not filmed. Which one of them, I guess, gave you I hate to use that word, but which one gave you the creeps the most? That had the biggest impact in your life?
For me, I would say the one that gave me the most creeps, oh gosh, would probably have been the solo investigation I did at Seven Gables. Now, as far as building wise goes, when I'm with my team, I'm always the most comfortable that I could ever be, just because I know that we have a medium on our team that can go to bat for us, and
he has many times.
But when I go out in the woods by myself, that's when I get the most, the heebie-jeebies. Like every little thing makes my hair stand up on end. Not during the day as much, but if you're out in the pitch black woods by yourself, it does kind of give you the heebie-jeebies a little bit.
There's only really been one place that I have felt incredibly uneasy. It was a building in Lansing, Michigan called the Fledge. They use it as a community center. Another building that used to be a church back in the day. That pulling up to the building, I got a weird feeling for some reason about it, and I couldn't explain it at the time. And we got into the building, and the owner was showing us around and everything, and we're down in the basement, and I'm just like, I don't like it down here. I'm like, there's something that isn't sitting well with me. And there's a room in the basement that has, they have a recording studio down there, and then they have a table. And I just, my mind went to something weird and bad happened at this table. Like, I just had this mental image for some reason of like sacrifices and stuff. I don't ask me where that came from, but we're doing our investigation and everything, and Ben and our medium were heading up the stairs, and they found some pictures of like demonic sacrifices and that kind of thing on the walls. So I was like, I knew there was a reason I didn't like this building for some reason. And the building itself, it's not necessarily in the best area either. It didn't help to put me at ease to notice that there was a bullet hole in the door. And the owner was like, oh, if anybody comes up and tries to come in, just call the police. And we're like, well, that, gives me the warm and fuzzies. But yeah, that was the only place I really didn't feel comfortable pretty much the whole time I was there.
Oh, that's right. They had the upside down burned crosses in the ceiling too.
Yep. And I don't know if my anxiety was kind of heightened that day for some reason. So I still wonder if that had anything to do with my feelings on that building, but I have not gone back in there ever since. So, but yeah, every other place I kind of go in there with an open mind, and there's been a couple times that something's happened that's kind of made me jump a little bit. We were at the Collingwood Arts Center. We were in the basement and a door slammed, and kind of scared the crap out of everyone. But otherwise, like, I don't generally feel uneasy, but the Fledge definitely was not my favorite place.
No, I think from the neighborhood perspective and the bullet hole, that would have made me feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
But I guess, when you go to these types of locations, you're going to feel a slight discomfort no matter where, because there's some sort of energy in there. It's either going to not want you there.
Oh, absolutely.
Or maybe they do, but most likely there's a reason why people are calling you either for help or to come investigate these locations. Mm-hmm. And so for the listeners of Let's Find Out, that they want to learn more about the YouTube channel, they want to learn more about where you're going next, and about Ghost Contact Paranormal, where can they go find out?
You can check us out on Facebook. It's Ghost Contact Paranormal. You can also reach me on my personal page, Benjamin Strongwolf Rodriguez. I actually post more content on my personal page than I do on our team page, actually. And then we also have our YouTube channel that is Ghost Contact Paranormal. And when you're doing the research, if you can't find it, because I've noticed a lot of times when you research or type in Ghost Contact Paranormal, it pulls up a lot of different shows. So you can also search the Woodland Ghost Tracker, and that should bring you to our YouTube channel.
Excellent. And what I'll do also when this episode is released, on the show description and links, I'll put that right in there. That way it's easier for people to navigate through the other teams and just find you directly. And one more thing before we go. Seeing that there's a lot of elements of danger no matter where you go when you're doing an investigation, what kind of advice would you give to those out there younger groups who may not have the experience as both of you have? What kind of advice would you give them before they go on an exploration or some sort of investigation?
Never go to a location in the middle of the night by yourself like I did, unless you know the land really, really well. The good thing about Seven Gables, it's a park that we've at least investigated numerous times, because that's technically our training grounds. So in the spring, or when we get new equipment, or we try to get our team out there just to brush them up on how to use the equipment, and just to hang out with the team in the spring. And so we call that our training ground. And also, we've been using it a lot of times when we would get new members on our team. We have a good solid team now.
Yes, we do.
But over the years, we had let some people go, and then we needed to fill in some with some new people. And so we would always have Seven Gables be our training ground. And so with that being said, we knew the land really, really well. But if you're an investigator, I highly recommend, if you're going to go into the woods, go during the day to get a lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to get lost in the woods. You don't want to take a wrong turn and step into a swamp or something like that. So get your bearings together before you go into the middle of the woods in a pitch black dark.
I would say to go into an investigation with an open mind. And also, a lot of teams do different things to protect themselves. We have people on our team that have crystals, that use crystals for protection. Some people use sage. One of our medium, he will always check in with us at the end of an investigation and just say, are you feeling okay? Do you feel like you have any attachments to you or anything? And he will cleanse us. He'll say a prayer over us, a protection prayer, and he will do everything he can to cleanse us before we even leave the location, so nothing follows us home.
And with that being said, also speak out if you feel like you're being affected by something.
Yes. Say
something to somebody. Don't feel like you can, just go home and deal with the spirit in your own way. Speak out to people. Especially if you have a medium on your team.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, then, you may have to reach out for some help. But don't just not say anything. Speak out.
Excellent. Great advice, by the way. When you're first starting out, don't go out there by yourself. Know the lay of the land, and for God's sake, at least know what you're doing. This is not for amateurs.
Don't be like Ben. Don't do what he did.
Well, and if you do, just make sure it's a place where you're going.
Absolutely.
Make sure that there's not going to be a wild animal out there that can take you down. Here in Michigan, thankfully, we don't have much of that until you get farther north. But where we're at here for Seven Gables, they may have some small coyotes out there.
Mm-hmm.
Or a dog man, I guess.
One of our teammates carries, and a couple of us, especially if we're out in the woods, but a couple of us will take like a knife or something out there with us too, just in case we were to run into an animal or something that could be potentially bad for us. Actually, when we were at Seven Gables one time, me and our medium and another person were out and down one of the trails, and we heard something in the woods that we heard a growl, and it did not sound like an animal at all. But we were, my teammate who carries, he racked around in his gun. He's like, and we are turning around and we're going now. So we booked it down that trail. We're like, we're not sticking around to wait to find out what's happening.
That is the right answer. And with all your investigations coming up here, would you both mind coming back on the show later this year and discuss what it is that you found and the type of experiences you had at these locations?
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. The other one, that the video short that you were just talking about, the apparition, you'll have to check that one out as well.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, that was at Randolph County Asylum. It's the only place we actually got a real full body apparition that appeared in the window.
Definitely our most solid piece of evidence we've ever caught. Pretty awesome.
Excellent. And I'm sure that after hearing that, the listeners will go straight to it. I really appreciate both of you being on the show, and I'll catch you later this year.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, my friends.
Let's find out with Diego, the power of Diego Mania. All content for Let's Find Out is property of co-host Diego and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, co-host Diego, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.